Hey you guys, welcome to Paperclipping. I'm your host Noelle Hyman. It's the first quarter of the year and all the scrapbooking manufacturers are releasing new collections. And I know I'm excited for a few of those collections. I've already got some on order and I bet you do too. But if you're like me, you probably also still have a whole lot of leftovers from last year's collections. Or if you don't purchase collections, maybe you purchase kits or maybe you purchase randomly, but I bet you still have a whole lot of leftover stuff. We're going to focus 2 episodes on what you can do with all this leftover stuff, how you can mix and match it and do things to it to make it exciting again so that you can use it up quickly. And today we're going to focus on how you can remix items to make brand new unique kits. In the next episode, we'll also do some remixing and making new kits, but we'll do some other fun stuff too. Let's get started for today's episode of Paperclipping. These are the collections that I purchased a year ago. I had decided to experiment in buying paper pads, which I had never done before, and I found out that it was too much paper for me, way more than I could use, but it was a good experiment, a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it. What I have is the Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm line, Amy Tangerine's Yes Please, Studio Calico's Sun Drifter, and Snippets collections. And then I didn't buy the paper pads for Teresa Collins, but I did buy a lot of the papers and the 6x6 paper pads and a lot of embellishments. And of the 12x12 papers, this is all I have left. These were from the Memories line, and I also have stuff left from the He Said, She Said line. I think it's best to start with your smallest collection. So for me, that is my 2 Teresa Collins lines because I only have those 2 papers. So I've got a 6x6 pad, and most of my collections I have 6x6 pads for. And for the most part for now, I like to keep my 6x6 pads intact just because if I'm going to be separating a collection, it's kind of nice to have another version of that collection that is still intact so I can go to it, because usually we know what's in a 6x6 pad and we can just look at that and see what's in there, and it's really easy to use. Once I get to a point where there is not much left of the 6x6 pad, then I might take it through a process similar to what we're going to do now. But for the most part, I keep these together in a drawer where I can flip through them really easily. So I'll just remove this and we'll start looking at the embellishments that I have left. You can see that I mostly have embellishments, but that's okay because these may seem hard to deal with no paper left to use them with, but I have so much other paper, and you're going to see how easy it is to pair these with different papers. So I've got these long strips of papers. I've got these die cut flowers, some embellishments like brads and buttons and chipboard pieces here. I've got these little banner type things here, and then some washi tape, and I have this little container that is full of die cut pieces. I happened to notice when I first started scrapbooking with these collections that some of these orangey colors that are in the Snippets line for Studio Calico match my orangey and reddy peachy colors in my Teresa Collins collections. And you can see some of that here too. And so now that I'm getting ready to rekit things and mix them up, I'm coming back and I'm going to bring some of these pieces together from the different companies. So if I open up this paper pad, I can pull out some of those pieces, put it next to me, and just see what looks good. Let me flip to some whole pieces here. I really like this cream color. And creams I keep a lot of times in a separate file of creams because I go looking for creams a lot. But first I want to see if I'm going to use them in a collection. And if not, then I'll put this in a cream file. Here's, I think these look really nice together. So let me look a little bit further. If I flip through some of these pieces, I can find this right here, another floral in that orange. And I think those would look really good together too. And also, I noticed back in the beginning, this card here, this matches really nicely, and that looks good. And in fact, right next to it is a blue, and the Teresa Collins line has a similar blue in it too. So I'm going to focus on these 2 colors. I'll pull out the papers that I think will look really good, and we'll start putting a collection together. Here's my new collection, which I'm really excited about. It's mostly a mix of Studio Calico and Teresa Collins. I think it looks really nice together. I'm newly inspired to use these pieces. I've got a lot of embellishing pieces that can go with it. And I've taken my brads and moved the colors that don't go with the new one off to this side. Actually, I still need to move that yellow one, I now realize, over here. And that way I can cut these away and put these with a different collection or in just a general area of brads. And I can keep these with this. I've got the 3 washi tapes, 2 of which I think look great with this collection. So I'm going to keep it here, and then I'll put this with some general washi tape. And then I've got a few random pieces that are just left over from other things that also go really nicely with this collection. So I'll just add it in. And so that's another way that I take even older stuff or scraps of things and mix them in with newer things or things I'm excited about. I really like this floral piece from Teresa Collins, and I feel like it's elegant, and I wanted to take some of the elegant parts of that collection and keep them together separate from what we just did. So these are the pieces that I chose to keep in a new kit for this piece of paper. And now thinking about what else I can go with it, I remembered that along with my Lucky Charm stuff, I have this beautiful ruffle paper from Dear Lizzie that's a leftover scrap from what I had used before, and I think these look really beautiful together and go really nicely. And as I'm looking through my pad, I also noticed I had a scrap, and this didn't go with Dear Lizzie, but I thought after I used it, it went nicely with some of her stuff because she's got these sort of aqua colors, and so I just stuck that in there just in case I need it for the future rather than throw it away. And I realized it looks even better with this piece of paper. It's a darker version of this. And so these are all really elegant. They're a beautiful style. So this is a smaller collection, but I like when I'm doing something elegant, I like it to be more simple. So I think this is a really gorgeous collection. And in fact, I know exactly the story that I want to put with this. And so I'm going to go ahead and start scrapbooking this page right now. And that'll give you an idea of how great these types of kits that you've made yourself can come together to a scrapbook page. I picked out a similar color of cardstock for my background. It's not going to show, but it's just going to be the stable background. And because I've got, this is 2/3 left of a 12 by 12 sheet, because I had used 1/3 of it. And dividing things up into thirds is a great way to divide up a page, is to have 1/3 one thing and 2/3 the other. So I'm just going to keep it the way it is and use that as 2/3 of the bottom. And then I cut this piece up into a smaller piece so it can be 1/3 of the page at the top, like this. And then I'll take my 2 glitter pieces and use them as a border. And that's what I love about scraps, is when you cut your papers well and you cut your items well into good design pieces and shapes, what you have left over just can come together often so easily. So that's what I've got as my main background now. And then I've got my 2 pictures. And this was really cute, of my daughter and her cousin at a family wedding. And they're very young. And Danny, who's the cousin, is quite a romantic type of classy kind of guy with his suit on. And he wanted to dance. And so he grabbed his cousin, my daughter, and they had their first dance. And I love that I've got a picture of Uncle Russell fixing their hands so they're doing it correctly. And so those are the 2 pictures I'm going to use. And I am going to put them at a diagonal, something like this. And I used my electronic cutter to do these really showy, flashy kinds of frames. And frame these here. I think those frames look really nice with this style that I'm going with. Kind of elegant, but whimsical and youthful too. So this one will frame this one, and then the little hearts at the bottom of this frame can overlap that second one, and they'll overlap just a little bit. So now these are going at diagonals, and then I just need some title work and journaling and some embellishments to finish off the page. I added a title and I taped my pieces down, and for some of these leafy pieces I wanted them to be dimensional and pop up. So I used these glue dots that are dimensional. They're really thick, but they'll still keep it down nicely. And then I want to add this journaling card from the Teresa Collins line, but I'm adding these little corners here, and I bought these corners probably a few years ago, and Again, they're really elegant with some white glitter and some little diamond things. So let me grab my tape runner and just put some tape down. These corners have adhesive on them too, so I don't need too much. And I'll just nestle this in this little space down here. And other than adding my journaling, it's possible I may add little tiny details like white enamel dots, but for now I'm happy with this, and I think that's going to be all I'm using. So that leaves me still some of these pieces here, just a few pieces left. Ooh, maybe I'll add this one to that page. I'll bring this back, maybe something like that. I don't know, we'll see. But that leaves me with these pieces. So just to supplement that a bit, I'm gonna go ahead and keep these corners with this too. A lot of times I keep something like this just with a generic stash of things that can go in a lot of layouts. But really, this is quite specific because it has more of an elegant look to it. So I don't use them all that much. So I think it would be better to keep it with this group of items here, since they've got that style. And then I've also got this last remaining piece of a doily that's just sitting in my scrap room, and I'll add that in there too. So I guess what I would need to do left for this would be to find maybe a glitter background paper that's white or something like that. But I've got a little bit of left of this to play with. We're now on the last piece from the Teresa Collins line. It's this paper here, and I decided to flip through my Dear Lizzie collection to see what would go with it, and I found these umbrellas, and I think they're adorable. I love that the graphic designs are similar size, kind of a similar shape in that they're round, and they go in a diagonal, so I think they look really cute together. I decided to leave the strip on this one because I've got two of these, and so now I have that option of keeping that with the hearts and the "you make me happy when skies are gray" sentiment. I've also found I have a 12 by 12 paper in the Dear Lizzie pack that has different strips of pattern. So I cut this one off to go with it, and I think that looks really good. I may not use it this way, but I like seeing that I have that option. And then these are from the 6 by 6 paper pad in Dear Lizzie. And normally I wouldn't pull 6 by 6 pieces out to add to it, but these are already cropped and pulled out of the pad, and they're just sitting there left over. And I think that adds a nice bit of color, so it's not just dreary in green and blue. So that adds some energy and fun playfulness to it. Then I went looking at my other collections to see if I had some of these colors in different tonalities and different ways. So I found a couple from the Amy Tangerine line and a couple from Studio Calico. And so this is now a new kit. This kit needs some embellishments now, so I pulled out my Studio Calico embellishments that go with the snippets, and I'm going to add to this kit whatever will match with it. So I've got these 3 vellum Polaroid type frames, and most of these, if not all of these really, would go with this collection. The cream goes great. This, I think, kind of greenish gray or bluish gray goes really well. I could use the red, so I'll definitely pull out a handful of these cameras. And I know I've got this color of blue in 1 or 2 of those other lines that we did earlier, so I can move those to those. And the same goes with some of these pieces. I need to decide if I want more color, which I probably don't. I think I'll do just little bits of color here. Maybe I can add this brad to this for a little more color, but then concentrate more on some of the greens or the blues or the creams. This piece here is a bit of a surprise. As I was going through my collections, I found this scrap, and this is even older. It's probably a couple of years old, and it's a Dear Lizzie piece from her Neapolitan line. And I have these scraps with it, and only because I love these little pieces so much did I keep them. And so I decided to do one more collection for now, or one more kit with these pieces. And the first thing I want to do is make this piece a usable one, because we saw how much better it is when you've got a piece that's ready to go. It makes scrapbooking so much easier. It makes it easier to decide to scrapbook with older stuff and scraps when they're usable pieces already. So I'm going to trim this into a straight edge, this edge here like this one, and then I will trim this a little bit more into an arch that's even as opposed to an uneven arch, which is what it was. And now that's something that I could see, you know, as a small little grouping of embellishments and things like that. So I want to see what I can do with this piece. And as I look at these colors, they remind me a little bit of the Amy Tangerine Yes Please line. It's different, but it's got some similarities. You can see some reds here. There's some pinks. Really what I'm looking at is these bright oranges and yellows and greens, and so you can see some of that in here. So I'm going to flip through, and there's something specific I'm looking for. I know there's a page with some bright colored cards like this. So I'm going to flip through and try to find that. And it's kind of like this, but this isn't the one. And as I flip through, I see this, and I was imagining this on a white background, but I really want to try this and see what it looks like, because this does have that light, pale, muted pink. And I actually think that looks really good, really cool. I wasn't expecting to do that. And this right here is a different color than this. It's not quite exactly right on. It's similar though. So I'm going to tear this off with it just in case I can make that work. But let me go on before I do that and go to that one piece that had the cutouts, the bright cutouts that I was looking for. And here it is. And look how awesome some of these cards look with this. Again, that green isn't exactly right, but it's good enough to make it work. This pinkish color isn't quite what we've got here, but I think all these look really cool anyway. And these, and maybe even this. So I'm gonna cut apart these pieces and pull out that pink and start making a new kit. Here's my newest collection now with some extra pieces that I found that will work, that are leftovers or scraps from other collections or similar collections. And I can't tell you how excited I am now to be able to return to this old collection that I loved and do something new with it. I couldn't wait, and I decided to do a page, and I decided to go with that original idea I was using as I was pulling out my first items. And I'm going old school, and I set some eyelets on each of these cards because I'm going to use this whole idea of banners and make another banner with these cards here. And I'm going to use some of this green embroidery thread that I've got to string these up. Instead of having a thin piece of thread like this, I wanted something thicker. So I took 3 pieces of string and knotted them on one end and taped them down to my table and then braided them. So now I've got a thicker string that I can use to string up my little banner pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together, put together the rest of the layout, and then we'll see how it goes. Here's my page now. I've added my picture. I'll add a tiny bit of journaling down here, but I don't have a whole lot to say. It's really about what is in the picture and my boys interacting with their dogs. I added 2 more eyelets up here at the top so that the string would go through, and then I taped it in the back. And you can see how it's quite dimensional. I added some foam dots under these banners here, but I also taped them so there would be a feeling of movement, like the wind is blowing them, like the wind really does blow banners or things that are hanging like this. So this is my page. It's really, I just picked some of those pieces from the kit that I put together, 2 completely different collections that were not intended to match, but it's very, very easy these days to put collections together and match things that were not intended to go together. Those Teresa Collins collections had a completely different look and style from the other collections I was working with, but hopefully you saw how easy it can be to mix and match collections even when they look nothing alike. Really, it's a matter of focusing on a couple of colors, and you can find colors from different collections that will work really great together. I hope that you'll take a couple of days and your leftover pieces, clear yourself a big giant space, and start mixing and matching those pieces into kits of your own that you can use and that you'll be really excited about. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, have fun paper clipping.